I'm gonna give you the top 5 reasons why beginner surfers don't progress. Number 1, they don't practice or perfect their pop-up. Number 2 is they don't practice or perfect their paddling technique. Number 3 is they're too scared to nosedive. Number 4 is they don't practice or realize the importance of reading waves. Number 5 is beginners usually tend to be really stagnant when on the water. They don't like moving around. So number 1, practicing and perfecting your pop-up. That is probably the most important thing to do when you are learning or when you want to progress in surfing. I've seen so many people, especially when they're learning, they don't really care about their pop-up. They want to just catch as many waves as possible. But in reality, in order to progress, you have to be able to pop up in any condition. So before you get in the water, just practice. Practice popping up on your board. Practice your feet placement. That's also very important in your pop-up. Being able to realize when you have to pop up is also a very important skill you have to learn. You want to pop up on top of the wave and ride it. You don't want to pop up on the bottom of the wave or kind of too far down the wave, because then you can't really turn left or right and ride a line. Number 2 is not practicing or perfecting your paddling technique. I would say, especially in the beginning, for me, I thought it was just paddle as hard as you can all the time. But in reality, when you're paddling out through the break, you want to paddle nice and slowly. You want long strides in order for you to regain energy so that when you're at where the waves are breaking, you can turn around really quickly and paddle really hard. If you're paddling super hard just to get out to the break, by the time you get out to the break, you're going to be too tired to catch a wave. And then you have to wait for another set. And I will say that if you've caught a wave in the middle of the set, just wait till the set is over. There's no point in paddling out into these really heavy waves and then you're just gonna be kind of stagnant where you are. If you just wait like 2 minutes, the waves are gonna be kind of flat and you can paddle right through it. I will give you a little tip. When you're paddling, a lot of people say to just have a flat hand. Have small spaces in between your fingers. That creates kind of a bigger surface area in order for you to paddle. Number 3 is being too scared to nosedive. Especially me, when I first started off, I was really scared to nosedive because I would nosedive all the time. What happened was, since I was nosediving so much, I pushed myself really far back on my board. Before I was riding this 9-foot board, I was riding a 7-foot board, and I would push myself really far back out. The issue with that is when you catch a wave, your nose is going to be really far out of the water, so that when you're paddling and the wave is like this, the wave's not even going to be able to catch your board because you're going to be so far back on your board. You want to find a nice even balance, so where your nose is just slightly, let's say this is the water, you don't want your nose to be like that, you don't want your nose to be like this, but you want to find a nice balance so that it's just slightly out of the water like that. Number 4 is not being able to read waves properly or not really caring. When I was first starting off, the majority of the time I'd be laying down on my board facing towards the beach, not even facing towards the waves, because I thought I could just look over my shoulder and paddle for the wave. But in reality, the majority of the time you're gonna be sitting on your board facing towards the waves, not even towards the beach. Only when you see a wave are you gonna turn around and paddle for it. You want to be able to sit there and read waves properly. Half of the time, I don't trust my gut, and that's a mistake. Trust your gut when you're reading these waves. There's going to be times where you see a wave further out and you'll be like, that's not going to be a great wave. And by the time it reaches to you, it's going to be a great wave. Or you see a decent wave out there, but by the time it reaches you, it dies out and it fizzles to nothing. You want to be able to read these waves. I've heard from many people that reading waves is like a different language. And in some way it kind of is, because the waves are so unpredictable. But if you can kind of recognize these key things in a wave, then you'll be able to catch a lot more waves. That kind of ties into my 5th point, which is being too stagnant on the water. A lot of beginners, they choose to stay in one spot when they paddle out. But what they don't realize, especially since I surf at a beach break, is there's waves all along the beach. So even though I paddle out where all these people are staying, there might not be waves 10 minutes later. It could just be down to the left. And if I chose to stay there and wait another like 5 more minutes, yeah, there'll be waves. But if I just caught a wave there, paddled to the left, I would have caught more waves. You always want to be moving in the water. Yes, there are times where you want to just sit there and relax and recover, and there will be times for that. But if you notice that where you're sitting at isn't producing the surf you want, and down to the left or down to the right it is, just bite the bullet. Paddle down over there and catch some waves. I'm gonna give you a bonus tip. This bonus tip number 6 is, especially if you're starting off, if you're fresh, if you're new and you want to learn how to surf, gonna be quantity over quality. When I was starting off, I was able to catch some pretty decent sized waves, and that made me believe that I was better than I was. So I was paddling out to these really big waves, but I couldn't pop up properly. I couldn't paddle properly. I couldn't read the waves properly. So I'd only catch a handful of waves. But then I realized if I just stayed in a little more, I could practice all of these things that I was lacking in, so that when I wanted to go back out to catch those waves that I knew I could catch so much more. When I was starting off, I'd rather have caught 20 okay waves than 5 really good waves. Now, if you're getting past that beginning point and you're kind of going into the intermediate point and you want to start progressing, learning how to ride down a line properly, learning how to turn left and right, learning how to nose ride, learning how to use your momentum to ride that wave, want to start actually focusing on quality rather than quantity. I would say that at least 99% of beaches, the really quality waves are far out and there's gonna be less of them. So again, if you're super new, you wanna learn how to surf, quantity over quality. But if you're trying to progress past that beginner phase, you wanna learn and you wanna practice certain moves and certain skills that you wanna try, it's gonna be quality over quantity. So again, those are 5 tips with another bonus tip. Number 1, not practicing or perfecting your pop-up. Number 2, not practicing or perfecting your paddling. Number 3, being too scared to nosedive. Number 4, not being able to read waves properly. And number 5 is being too stagnant on the water. With a bonus tip number 6, when you're starting off new, gonna be quantity over quality. And when you start progressing, you want to learn, you want to practice these things that you've kind of got down. It's gonna be quality over quantity. All right, I'm pulling up to the beach. Let's see if the waves are decent. I'll see you guys after.